I'm honored today to be joined by David O'Reilly, Chief Executive Officer of the Hughes Corporation. David, welcome.
Thank you, Yana. I'm thrilled to be back with Why Texas and to discuss today's topic, the state of real estate. It is an industry that has, without a doubt, experienced rapid and dynamic growth.
David, you oversee the nation's largest portfolio of large-scale master plan communities across the country, and Howard Hughes is experiencing a lot of momentum right now. It's pretty exciting to be in the industry right now.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. It's an incredible time for Howard Hughes and an incredible time within our industry. We're all experiencing the great domestic migration from coastal cities to warmer, less expensive, business-friendly environments, especially here in Texas. As residents and businesses seek out those communities that offer a better quality of life and greater opportunities for success. Along with Texas, the Howard Hughes Corporation has certainly been the recipient of this migration, a trend that has helped fuel outsized land sales, condo sales, and NOI growth. Our master plan communities had their strongest year of land sales in the history of the company. What is unique today is that individuals are setting the pace, telling the market and their employers where they want to live and what type of lifestyle they want to enjoy. And now it's the companies that are listening to their employees and following them to these great locations. As a result, the real estate industry needs to remain nimble to adjust to these changing dynamics. Today's opening panel, titled America's New Urban Ideal, takes a deeper dive into those dynamics and focuses on the criteria that are driving so many residents and businesses and their decisions to move. The discussion will be moderated by Charles Blain, president of the Urban Reform Institute, and based on the findings of his new report titled The Next American Cities. Needless to say, I'm a huge fan of Charles' research, which focuses on the factors that determine today's new urban ideal and the thoughtful planning that goes into the making of a successful community, not just for today, in this moment, but for decades to come. Here to tell us more and introduce his panelists is moderator Charles Blain.
I'm excited to be here with Why Texas today to discuss the new American ideal. We'll be discussing the characteristics and the details of what makes the next American city. And I'm excited to share the time with my co-panelists. We have Congressman Kevin Brady. We have Linda Nelson, the Business Development and Marketing Director of Memorial Hermann, the Woodlands Medical Center. And we have Jim Carman, the President of the Houston region for Howard Hughes Corporation. So, Congressman, I'd like to start with you. I'd like to kick it off. You've been uniquely positioned in a front row seat to see transformation in master plan communities, and in particular the Woodlands. Our report looked at the growth from 2010 to 2020 in the exurbs and the suburbs and the depopulation of many of the cities. And we saw that 2.7 million people have left urban cores and 2 million people have moved into these new American cities. And so I'd just like to ask you, from your perspective, what is the framework that has allowed this explosive growth and has encouraged it?
Yeah, Charles, the Woodlands was an innovation from its very get-go. One of 4 new towns in America, dreamed of and developed by George Mitchell, just an iconic entrepreneur, philanthropist, innovator, and one of the early believers in sustainable development. He envisioned a community where people, industry, and the environment could all prosper together. Literally, the Woodlands is a community built inside a forest, and it has been wildly successful by maintaining that model. Part of that innovation is its governance. This is not a typical city. It is a township, the only one of its kind in Texas, and I had a small role to play creating the first improvement district for downtown here, the town center that later evolved in the township. But that limited government really forces accountability to the residents. It sets high standards, but without the high costs or the bureaucracy of a typical city hall, and as a result, a focus on what communities really need, which is, affordable housing, safe neighborhoods and communities, public parks and amenities that draw people from around the world. All of that has been the focus of a township, and I think one of the strengths for the business community here, and one of the attractions is, you don't have to worry about recruiting people to the Woodlands. You have the pick of people who've moved here from around the world and love the diversity of it and the quality of life. And it is a workforce that a lot of businesses love to see and access, and a government that really is focused on a partnership, a lighter touch, high standards certainly, but a very pro-business, I think a very dynamic economy that attracts a lot of businesses as well as a lot of families.
Well, I'm glad you left it off on that, because I want to go to Linda, and you're the immediate past president of the Woodlands Chamber of Commerce. And so from your perspective, what is it? I mean, Congressman Brady just laid out a number of things, but when you're recruiting, when you were talking to businesses and recruiting businesses and encouraging families and businesses to come to this area, what is it that you highlighted? Because especially, as we all know now, a lot of businesses are following workers and they're going to where they are. So what is kind of the secret sauce there from your perspective?
So I also had a front row seat being the chair of the chamber during this crazy time of COVID, and just watched. We have 84 companies that have 100 or more employees right here in the Woodlands. My passion obviously is healthcare. 30% of them are healthcare workers. That's about 11,000 employees here work in the healthcare world. When we talk about recruitment, I'm going to again look at the healthcare side. We have world-class physicians here. We don't have to recruit a physician. Number one, we have high managed care rates. Look at where we live, look at the facilities. The hospitals here, we are the only county that has all 6 brands. We have MD Anderson, St. Luke's, HCA, Methodist, Texas Children's, and Memorial Hermann. The only one in the whole greater Houston area that has that. When you can come and your kids can get taken care of, your elderly can take care of. If you're in a really bad accident, trauma, we've got helicopters here. So to recruit employees, knowing healthcare is here, that's one of the number one things they look for, but also to make sure that we're being taken care of by the best of the best. And again, we can bring in specialists. They come to us and say, do you have openings, because they've done their homework and they want to live here in the Woodlands.
And Jim, I'm excited to ask you the same question, because not only are you a practitioner of this, I mean, you oversee it, but every time that we looked for models during our report, we kept coming back to the Woodlands as kind of a standout premier model of what this city can, or it's not even really a city. I mean, we keep calling it a new American city, but it's ironic that it's neither new nor is it a city. But we keep coming back to the Woodlands. And so from your perspective, what has created this kind of symbiotic relationship between business and residents, but also created this self-contained ecosystem where everything is here, truly everything is here? No longer do we have the days of folks, bedroom communities, of them working in cities and then going out and living somewhere else. Everything is here.
Yeah, well, you said it, Charles. It's not a bedroom community, and that was credit to George Mitchell and the visionaries that started the Woodlands. Congressman mentioned. George Mitchell had as part of that vision, the idea that we would have 1.5 jobs per rooftop in the Woodlands at ultimate build-out. And that at that time, especially considering the birth of the Woodlands and where it was in relation to Houston and where the job center was in Houston, was a bold idea. It took some time. It took a while for that to happen, but we are at that point now. We're actually right at 1.5 jobs per rooftop here in the Woodlands. And so we're not a bedroom community. More people actually commute to the Woodlands than out of the Woodlands today. Our daytime population goes up as opposed to down. So very unique in that sense from a community of its type outside of a major urban core like Houston. That vision was not just to create a great place for people to live and to play and to pray and to learn. It was to work as well. And so bringing those companies, being patient to provide the type of environment that would bring the companies here, being patient to provide the opportunities for our healthcare systems to eventually move to the Woodlands and now become really the second medical center of the Houston region now, as Linda mentioned, all the services that we have here. It really just takes a long-term vision, a plan. And you mentioned symbiotic relationship with the residents. And, another unique aspect of this community is how tightly tied together the residents are with the business community. It's very unique, and it's, because what's best for the Woodlands from a business perspective and from a corporation perspective is what's best for the residents. We're only going to be as successful as a master plan developer when the Woodlands is the most amazing place to live and to work and to play and pray and learn and to heal. And so it's tied together in a very unique way, but it takes great patience. It takes a visionary and such as George Mitchell, and it allows the developer to pivot over time. You have a plan, but you're able to be flexible and pivot to market demands and changing community needs.
Mm-hmm. My next question also goes to all three of you. I just kind of want to get your predictions for 2022, how we see, I mean, I guess if I would have asked for your predictions in 2019, they would have been way off, so they might be way off if I ask you today as well. But just kind of want to get your predictions for where you see us going community-wise, business-wise, in Texas in general, more specifically in the Woodlands, and how we're going to kind of just fare moving forward 2022. And whoever wants to jump in can take that first.
Well, you know, I think it is a tough time to predict with everything that's going on. But I will say that we do expect larger companies to start to make real estate decisions this year, hopefully. They haven't been doing that in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. You know, there's just too many question marks about the workforce and impacts of the pandemic. Changing dynamics in terms of work from home or hybrid work environments. But those questions are going to start to be solved by those organizations. And, you know, people ask me often, are you worried about losing tenants or tenants getting smaller in your office portfolio once a company decides to go to a work from home environment or you know, a hybrid environment? And I truly believe that the Woodlands and communities like the Woodlands are going to be the beneficiaries of those decisions, even if they are decisions to get smaller for corporations.
And just to add a brief tale on that, so to kind of continue to foster the growth that the Woodlands has seen, I would assume that you would suggest keeping that environment, keeping that ability to have quick turnaround like that, keeping the opportunity here, and kind of staying away from what some other places have done. Because 13 months, yeah, that's remarkable, because you're not going to find that in New Jersey.
Yeah, no,
Much as I love it.
It's critical to keep it, and you know, I think that will be the case. From our governing officials, Congressman Brady, all the way down to our residents, they understand that that symbiotic relationship and how important it is to have a very robust business community in order to have the amenity-rich residential community that we have here, mm-hmm. and the safe environment and the great schools. It's all connected. Yeah.
And I guess, Linda, the same question to you. Kind of what do you see in terms of business, in terms of your work in 2022, and also, what I asked Jim, what can the Woodlands and other master plan communities do to continue to foster the growth that they've seen?
So we didn't touch on Lone Star Community College at all. And they're a really diamond in the rough here for us, for all businesses, because talk about flexibility. If they see a need for a workforce, they can change their curriculum. And we see it with the hospital. When we need lab techs or we need CNAs, we go to them, and within a few short months, they already have a course that's being offered. As far as healthcare, lots going on in healthcare. Methodist, within the next month or two, will be opening up a $250 million tower. Memorial Hermann in June will be opening up a $254 million tower. So those continue to be built during the pandemic. Nothing stopped at all when it goes to that. And the last thing I want to talk about is, Jim just briefly talked about it, it's our relationships with our government officials, Congressman Brady and all our state reps, all our commissioners. We know them on a first-name basis, so when we have situations, it's easy for us to make a phone call and get their input and buy-in, and they help us move ahead. And I think that's a really important part of the business community, keeping those really tight ties with the elected officials, for sure.
I think 2022 Americans, you know, are starved to return to normalcy. You know, at their work, their school, with their kids, with the economy, with their health. And I think states like Texas and communities specifically like the Woodlands, gives you more flexibility to return to normalcy. You know, both in schools, which in our state opened up early and did it beautifully and safely, in the business community, in the community at large. And so I think communities like ours, at a time where Americans now have rethought their life and work balance and see quality of life has just dramatically exploded up the list of criteria now. And so communities that don't understand that will lose. I think communities that have set that standard and maintained it for nearly 50 years like ours will gain. But I think clearly Americans see quality of life as so much more desirable now. And for the future, I don't think that ever changes. And I think that's why communities like ours are going to continue to prosper.
So thank you all. Thank you to Why Texas for allowing us to take some time to discuss the success of Next American Cities and specifically the success of the Woodlands. And I thank the three of you for spending some time with me today to talk about your experience and what you have done to encourage that success. So we appreciate it. We hope that everyone has gotten something out of the conversation today, and we appreciate you tuning in.